with the chair of the Sentebale charity, which was set up by Prince Harry to help children in southern Africa. She alleges he bullied and harassed her and members of her team. Sky News contacted the Duke and Duchess of Sussex about the contents of Dr. Sophie Chandalka's interview with Trevor Phillips, and they declined to offer any formal response, though a source close to former trustees of the charity has described the claims as completely baseless. Those allegations are also the lead story for the Mail on Sunday. The Observer understands that Sir Keir Starmer is being urged to take a firmer line with Donald Trump in making sure the UK won't be subjected to import tariffs, which the US government has been imposing recently, even on America's allies. Amid suggestions the assisted dying bill could be abandoned, the Sunday Express speaks to advocates for the cause. The Sunday Mirror speaks to 4 mothers whose children are missing. The Sunday Times says the Met Police have arrested 6 women at a Quaker meeting on suspicion of conspiracy to cause public nuisance. The People encourages readers to get involved in the forthcoming 80th anniversary celebrations for VE Day. The Sun on Sunday takes issue with a Labour MP using expenses to pay extra rent demanded by the landlord of her London flat because she has a dog. And The Star wonders why people need AI to tell them how to change a light bulb. And we are joined tonight by Kevin McKeever and Angela Epstein. I'm not quite sure who needs AI to tell them how to change a light bulb. Yes, that is worthy of a front page. But let's start with a more serious fare and have a look at the Telegraph front page, first of all. And this is a story from our interview on Trevor Phillips on Sunday, being broadcast tomorrow morning with the previous CEO of Sentebale, and we know that Prince Harry quit the charity amid claims, we read, and we'll hear tomorrow, of bullying.
Yeah, absolutely. So these extraordinary claims have been made about a charity that we know is very close to Harry's heart. If you remember, when he became sort of disenfranchised, if you like, separated from the royal family, he took with him this charity and also, of course, the Invictus Games. So that being something that sort of reminds him of his old life. And there are allegations. We don't know anything further than that he's been accused of harassment and bullying, so that there's nothing to substantiate because they're simply allegations. But it's a question, and Kevin, being the PR expert, would probably be able to tell you better than me, but it's how it looks at the moment in terms of the PR fallout of this. Because Harry is somebody who, along with Meghan, has always been an advocate of social justice, fighting for those who are suffering with mental health. They're advocates for being compassionate. That's very much their brand. And then that's complete anathema to what we're hearing now. Again, allegations. And that potentially, from a PR perspective, undermines this image of them being sort of the great sort of supporters of those who are vulnerable in society. And I think that's going to make it quite difficult for them. Obviously, we need clarification. They've not responded. But just in terms of the optics, how is that going to impact on the future charitable work that he does? You know, will potential donors want to draw back? They haven't got the facts, but it's just, at the moment, I think from a PR perspective, how does it look for them, for Harry principally, because of the nature of the allegations and the nature of the charity, which of course was set up, it means, I think, forget-me-not, you know, set up with very much his mother in mind. It has all those emotional connotations. She was very much a champion of those who were overlooked by society. So it has enormous ramifications in terms of sort of the emotional fallout as much as anything else.
But Kevin, we know that those that are close to the trustees of Sentebale are saying that the allegations are completely baseless. And as we said, we've not heard directly from the Sussexes. Well, I think Angela's absolutely right. You know, we need to know the detail of what happened before we can even begin to pass judgment on the actual substantive facts. But the simple fact is, it's not going to be good enough for, in the long run, to be able to say, just to reject any claims of bullying and say that they don't recognise any of the allegations. In due course, because I think the real challenge here is
there's a kind of sniff around this couple that the principle doesn't match the practice, just as you were saying, and that actually you see the words bullying, and Meghan's pictured there. The Mail actually goes further and names Meghan, although Meghan's not accused at all of doing anything in terms of the interview, as far as I understand. But the fact is, there's a narrative that's bubbling away that this couple just something isn't quite right in terms of the kind of the honesty in which they carry themselves. The charity itself, as you've said, this was a legacy of his mother's work in tackling HIV/AIDS, and so clearly close to his heart over a large number of years. And for instance, for those who many people will read into the story what they already think about Harry, what they already think about Meghan. If they think that Harry is under the cosh of Meghan and somehow he's taken, he's been pulled away from that which he cares about from his youth, they'll use this story as an endorsement of that view. Similarly, those who think that the PR machine of Sussex Inc. Will crush anybody in its wake, they'll also think that. So in a sense, when the facts come out, it may well change people's attitude, but I suspect not. The problem is this couple just seem to have an ongoing problem with their reputation, and stories like this do nothing to help that.
Is that the problem, though, that the narrative that people will fill in the gaps with what they believe already, that those that don't like Harry and don't like Meghan, for instance, she's being named in this story, and Centre Barley was set up way before he even met her.
Well, I mean, the thing is that I think what Kevin's also sort of implying is this idea of credibility. Now, obviously, respectfully, PR is often about spin as much as it is about, the substantial part of what's being promoted. Harry and Meghan, but Harry principally for the purposes of this story, has set himself as this credible humanitarian figure. He's carrying the legacy of Diana. He's helping the so-called underdogs of society, in this case, children of HIV sufferers. And suddenly that credibility is being smashed. And I think Kevin is so right. They are such a polarising couple. We've had all the stories during the week about her new shopping website, which has been set up to it's been pitched against Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop website. And there are either those that support, those that there doesn't seem to be a sweet spot with Harry and Meghan where people are sort of ambivalent. And I think absolutely this will further sort of polarise opinion on them.
I think there's also put an issue here with Harry himself, which is, the stories that he doesn't really have many friends unless they're, relatives of Meghan's friends over in California. And this is a charity and a cause which rooted him in his history, rooted him in his family, rooted him in the memory of his mother. And is this, another kind of severing of a link with Harry's past here in the UK and something that might actually makes him seem like quite a diminished figure.
Shall we move on? Obviously, we had a look at the Mail as well, as we'd already mentioned. Harry and Meghan, too toxic, plus charity boss. Also, another allegation that's been made against the Sussex PR machine, as she describes it in the interview. But let's look at the Observer, and we read that Sir Keir Starmer should fight back strongly against Donald Trump if he imposes punitive tariffs on British exports. The push so far has not been to respond, to sort of sit back and see what actually happens. But has the time come where there needs to be that pushback against Donald Trump? Angela?
My personal feeling is that I like this steady approach that Starmer's taking. You often don't hear me start sentences with "I like Starmer," but on this occasion, well, at least I'm being honest. I think there needs to be a suspension of tariffs while they have robust trade talks. I mean, if we talk about, for example, car manufacturing, the US is the UK's second biggest export market. People love the Aston Martins and the Jaguars, etc. And it's going to be hurtful on both sides, because if they stop importing British cars, then it takes away competition amongst American manufacturers, which is only going to drive up prices in the States. So American consumers are going to be affected. And I think because there's been a sort of gentle start to the big relationship between the US and the UK, I think for us to do the tit for tat thing would be so damaging. And Trump is such a man of kind of action, often the wrong action. He's such a weather vane that I think sort of big gestures will not help. I think if Starmer can take a steady approach to the issue of tariffs, and they can take a more circumspect view, I don't think this kind of tit-for-tat thing will work.
But Kevin, does he just sort of lie down and wait for whatever he's going to be hit with?
Well, I think what this story really goes to the heart of is is Downing Street's strategy on dealing with the Trump administration working? We had that great moment a few weeks ago in the Oval Office, the triumph with Zelensky, and quite frankly, what to people's surprise, Starmer was lauded of being able to re-establish that Atlantic bridge that we've talked about since the Second World War, which relies on carving a third way, particularly between the EU, which we know Trump cannot stand, and the United States. That strategy would suggest that there is room somewhere to negotiate a British opt-out. But we saw on steel tariffs that isn't the case. But if we then... But also,
so that invitation of the Royal State visit, that seemingly didn't work.
It didn't go far enough. It's not licensed for long enough. Maybe it's one card that we've played once. The problem is, equally, what does Trump respect? We go back to first principles. He's a strong man, and he clearly is reacting to EU suggestions that they're going to go in hard on tariffs. So if we roll over, does that completely undermine the strategy that's been there from the outset, having a Starmer UK difference as a close ally, or could it antagonise the Oval Office when we may have already carved out our own unique position? So I think if I were number 10, I'd be saying, hold your nerve, stick to the strategy. But
does Trump respect a strong man? Does he respect those that fight back?
Well, I think, to some degree, although he clearly didn't respect Zelensky, who, against all odds, has led this remarkable response to being the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. I also wonder, and tell me if I'm an old romantic, but I think that Trump has this he has a grudging affection for the UK. His mother was from Scotland, wasn't she? Yeah. He has connections here. And as much as he is a man of action, he wants to shake things up. He makes these ridiculous sound bites. Within 24 hours, I'm going to resolve the Middle East or Ukraine or whatever. I don't think it is within his gift to want to have that. I mean, maybe I'm just too hopeful. But I think, like you said, he can't stand the EU, but I don't see that he quite puts us in the same pot. No. And therefore, that may be our saving grace there.
He wants a deal. Fundamentally, he's a deal maker. And we don't have a trade deficit with the US the way the EU does. So maybe there is space for a deal, and maybe the kind of more back-channel approach number 10's taken and Peter Mandelson's taken in DC will pay off. I guess time will tell. But I would say hold your nerve, Keir.
You're on first name terms with the Prime Minister.
Of course.
Sir Keir, Starmer to you. Just about a minute left for this story in the front of the Sunday Times. Angela, why don't you take us into this quickly? Migrants seek asylum after their visa expires. Explain.
Yes, so this is an extraordinary story. So about 10,000 people who arrive here on work or student visas have since claimed asylum, living in tax-funded hotels and other accommodation, etc. Now, Yvette Cooper, she wants eligibility checks to stop the abuse of people coming here and not being properly assessed in terms of having a visa because of what it's costing the economy. We've got people living in asylum accommodation who arrive in the UK on student visas or work visas and then claim asylum at the end of the visa. So essentially, she wants to shake up the system. She wants to bring this robust kind of approach to who is coming here. Labour has been very strongly criticised for having made a lot of noise in opposition about dealing with illegal immigration. They poo-pooed the Rwanda scheme. They talked about stopping the boats. And yet, all their detractors have said, well, what are you doing? So Yvette Cooper is now taking a kind of root and branch approach to those who work here illegally and those who are seeking asylum here after their visas expire.
Beautifully explained. Angela, thank you very much for the moment. And Kevin, we're going to take a break. Now, should a Labour MP have used expenses to pay for extra rent for her dog? We'll discuss that next.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood. Hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO.
This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans.
The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, DC.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Kevin McKeever and Angela Epstein. Let us take a look in this section, first of all, at the Sunday Telegraph front page. And this story about the BBC apparently refusing anti-Semitism training. The BBC's Director General has refused the training for the broadcaster. The government's independent advisor on anti-Jewish hatred has revealed. This is Lord Mann. What's the detail of this story?
Lord Mann has said that he visited some of the top brass, if you like, at the BBC on 3 occasions and offered training because, as we know, very sadly, the BBC has been absolutely swamped by allegations of anti-Semitism, systematic, institutionalised anti-Semitism within the organisation. You know, this is our public service broadcaster. And at a time of spiralling anti-Semitism, much of which has kicked off following the atrocious events of October 7th, the BBC was further discredited, as we know, because there was the sign-off for the Gaza documentary, How to Survive a War Zone, and it became clear that the narrator was the child of a Hamas government official in Gaza, Hamas being a proscribed terrorist organisation. So the story is that the BBC has repeatedly refused anti-Semitism training. Now, their response to this is that they have well-established processes in place and they're developing in-house anti-Semitism training. But I think from the, you know, I'm a member of the Jewish community, but I think broadly, if any ethnic community was looking at this story, I mean, we're looking at it through the prism of the Jewish community, it would be seen as the BBC marking its own homework. And I think the really important thing, and I think Lord Mann has been pushing for this, is to have some kind of independent scrutinising of what's happening in the BBC. At the moment, it's been like whack-a-mole. There's revelations. They, you know, it's condemned by those that are involved, like the Gaza documentary, and then something else happens. And the problem with an in-house kind of protocol is that it doesn't take that wider perspective. Ask the people who are affected by anti-Semitism, the consumers, as you would with any viewers of any, like I say, any demographic that had issue with the BBC, to come in and help with the training and help with sort of dealing with the problem. And I think this is what Lord Mann wants. And it's very disturbing that he's offered 3 occasions to help with training, and on 3 occasions it's been turned down.
Kevin, do you think it's not enough that the corporation is developing its own in-house anti-Semitism training, and they plan to roll it out more widely, also ordered further and more wide-ranging review into the document you mentioned?
I mean, it does seem out of touch from Tim Davie to say, essentially, we're going to mark our own homework. This is an issue of public trust. And, it's, we saw what happened with the Labour Party and the way it, quite frankly, went through a long journey in order to grapple with anti-Semitism, and that required, outside help and outside training. The BBC, it clearly didn't do its due diligence properly when it came to the Gaza documentary, so I don't think it can really be trusted to put together its own anti-Semitism training either. I think it would be right to take a step, take a breath, and bring in external help.
Andrew, take us to the Sun and the story of the Labour MP who's claimed expenses for her dog. This is to do with rent, additional rent, to bring the dog down to London, and the landlord charging whatever surcharge for the dog. But just to be clear, before we go into the depths of the story, she hasn't done anything wrong. These are perfectly legitimate expenses that have been claimed by other MPs.
Yes, absolutely. So again, it's probably one of these stories where it's all about the optics. This senior Labour MP has been she's been part of the kind of machinery to help impose the £5 billion of benefits cuts that has caused divided opinion and has been a very inflammatory move by the Labour Party. And she is using apparently taxpayers' cash, according to this, to live with her cockapoo. The party whip, Taiwo Owatemi, has received £900 of so-called pet rent for her dog Bella to stay at her London home. And campaigners have branded the claim by the Coventry North West MP a disgrace, and this idea that it's one rule for them and one rule for us. If she is playing within the rules, which, as you've said, that she hasn't done anything wrong, I think it's very much, again, about the optics. I think the problem is, more seriously, I mean, it is serious if taxpayers' cash is being used this way and there are any suggestions of any wrongdoing. But I think set against this Spring statement, set against the slashing of welfare benefits and this idea of those vulnerable in society somehow being very seriously compromised, these kind of stories do not, they don't serve the government well. Even though, to be clear, she hasn't done anything wrong.
Yes, just to reiterate that she's following the rules.
She is following the. I think it's about the rule. I think it's the story about the rules rather than the individual, which makes it the kind of front pages here.
Indeed, but it might not be the way that people read it with her picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also highlights as well, you have to pay the £900 because the landlord insists on a supplement if you've got a pet, which loads of people have to face. It's actually a real-world problem. I mean, who'd be an MP these days? I've got a dog and if I had to work between 2 places, I want to bring him with me as well.
Into Parliament?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, into Parliament as well?
Absolutely not. Into London, maybe into Parliament. I might calm things down.
It might make more sense than some of the people in Parliament.
Yes.
Let's see what the dog's got to say.
Just finally, the Star, any bright ideas? Why would people need AI to know how to change a light bulb?
I love this story. I absolutely love this story, not probably for all the wrong reasons. So this idea is that as AI starts to creep into our lives and really take hold from being a kind of off-field thing to suddenly something quite a central part of our lives, apparently that people are now younger people are becoming very dependent on it, and they're asking it for simple tasks, including how to change a light bulb. And I think possibly part of the thing, I don't know about you both here, but AI is so remarkable in that it's so fast. I mean, I have fun with it by just asking it stupid things, but actually it answers you very quickly. So you can just imagine. I don't understand why people don't know how to change a light bulb, though.
That is the question.
That's the question.
We've got 10 seconds.
Well, I think it's fair enough. I'm someone that has to YouTube everything. Change a plug, I've no idea. If I can ask Google or ask ChatGPT and gives me a straightforward step-by-step answer, fair enough. Probably a lot easier than asking my dad.
It's there to be used. It's there to inform us and help us in our lives. Kevin and Angela, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
A bright start and always a warm welcome. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, high pressure is set to dominate in the week ahead, with fine, dry and increasingly warm weather by day, cooler overnight. The clocks will spring forward in the early hours of Sunday to reveal a mostly dry start as overnight cloud and patchy rain clears the south coast. A few blustery showers are likely in the windy north. Otherwise, the weather is set largely fine for Mothering Sunday, with warm sunny spells away from breezy North Sea coasts. Any blustery showers in the far north will tend to fizzle out and the winds will ease as the pressure rises. A weak warm front will bring thicker cloud and some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle to western parts of Ireland.
A bright start and always a warm welcome. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.